Welcome, everyone. This is Joe Dagger, the host of the Business 901 podcast. With me today is Sam Brad. Sam is a graphic facilitator. He uses visuals to help groups increase engagement, solve problems, and communicate better. He can be found at drawingchange.com. And Sam, instead of me going on, could you just start out telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started?
Thanks, Joe, and hi, everybody. It's really great to be with you today. A little bit about how I got started. I get this question a lot, and the answer is that anybody from any field and any background can use visuals in their work. And so my path is probably unusual from someone else's path. I know people who are engineers or art therapists or even biologists who do this work, but my particular path was through nonprofit management. And so I did 15 years of nonprofit work, which means that you end up being a little bit good at a little bit of everything. And it really helped me with my flexibility. But always in those meetings, so I was doing facilitation work, consensus decision-making workshops, I was doing labor relations, grant writing, and always I was the one who was saying, can I just explain this to you by drawing it out? Can we get a map? Can I show you a poster of what I mean? And so eventually when I found out that you could do both people and visuals at the same time to help people understand, that's when I made the switch.
You're as much then as a facilitator as you are someone an expert on creating visuals then, right?
Yeah, and there's a big umbrella for visual practitioners. And so some people really specialize in being able to draw things incredibly well or quickly. They might have a cartooning or an illustration background. And so their specialty is really about refining or, again, like drilling down into exactly what that face or that picture needs to look like. But I come at it from the other way. I come at it for however you get it onto the page is probably going to be good enough to be able to communicate. And so I'm kind of in the field where I want the people in the room to increase their understanding. And if that means it's just two circles overlapping, then we just need two circles to overlap. We don't need fancy anything on the page. And so it's true. My background is more facilitation. And so I used to lead all sorts of discussion groups and help people organize. And in all of those meetings, visuals helped. I was going to say, like, we all know at the end of a long meeting, the stack of flip charts in the corner, rolled up, ready to die a slow death. That's what I want to avoid.
Nowadays, that there's been a big boom back to that hand-drawn type things. You know, and I get it. It's supposed to be more interesting, kind of like the storytelling, visual storytelling and stuff like that and everything. But why do you think that's surfacing, okay? Why is that coming back? Why we're all trying to be Da Vinci, I guess?
It's true. You're totally right. There's a huge boom right now, both in visual practitioners and the different ways that we're using analog tools to draw in any kind of business or professional context. And I think there's a few important reasons why. One is that we have more information now than we've ever needed to deal with. And there's something about having to slow down and think through it. My colleague and good friend Brandy Agerbeck says that drawing is your best thinking tool. And so by drawing or by making a visual, we have to go through a process of saying what exactly we're trying to mean in that moment. So I think it helps with understanding. And the second thing that I think visuals and the reason why they're growing in a professional context is because people get excited. They genuinely get excited and have a reaction to seeing that they've been heard and that they know that they can do this and that it's easy to understand what's just happened. So I think it helps us on like a brain level and also kind of on a relational or emotional level.
You make some pretty big claims, okay? I mean, you talk you talk about a visual practice can actually change a company culture. Frame that for me a little bit.
Changing any kind of company culture is not about one tool. And so visual practice is just about one tool in a wide toolbox, right? So if you subscribe to like the ADKAR model with ProSci, or if you have any kind of theoretical change, Lean, for example, any of those things, visuals help. It helps people to understand where they're at in that change management process. And so you can't just have like an organization trying to change from, I don't know, from X to Y, and then have graphic recording at your meeting and expect that graphic recording is going to surface all of the things and change everybody, and all of a sudden everyone's going to want to have dialogue and stand-up meetings and go home and be totally different people. That's not what I think anyone could claim. But what I do think is useful is that if you kind of take the camera and kind of zoom back in that change process, let's talk about the ADKAR model, right? So if you're at the awareness, visuals can help you see, okay, what are we trying to talk about? You're calling it, naming it this issue, but really I think it might be this issue. And so we can talk about it because we're going to see the same page. And then building the knowledge, again, one email isn't going to change anybody's culture, anybody's corporate culture. But again, visuals that are created by teams, maybe you draw it one way, I draw it another way, helps to disseminate what that knowledge should look like, and then so on. So different tools, but all visual tools helping each of the steps.
How important is simplicity? I mean, do we need all these fancy colors, these fancy swaths, okay, through everything like you got it, next to you there over on the board? Is how important is that, or is, like you said, is those two circles good enough?
Yeah, simple is always better. Simple is always better. And so it's right. Lean is a perfect fit actually for this type of visual work. Of course, everything from like the seeing on a Kanban board, or just visual reminders about like, okay, it's time to order more paper because here I see the sticky note is on the last package, right? Lean is really about people, right? Isn't it like 90% of problems are people, right? And so what I think visuals can actually help us do is to increase that dialogue between us. So it really can be simple. The poster behind me is actually two of the world's, in Vancouver, two of the truly very, very best lettering practitioners out there. They have the most beautiful handwriting. But I put this poster up because it was from the book launch that we just had, and I wanted to celebrate that they gifted the book launch with this art at the time and the graphic recording. But it doesn't have to look like this. It really can just be the back of the napkin. It really, like Dan Rome, it can really just be like whatever kind of Post-it notes or stickies that you have, whatever's going to be useful. It's kind of like when the photographers say the best camera is the one that you have on you all the time. That could be your phone. That's the best camera. So the best tool that you have, it could be a pen, it could be something fancy. It doesn't have to be.
How do you get someone started, okay? I mean, you got a group of people here. Do you just give them a pencil and paper and say, because that's kind of intimidating, isn't it?
Right. Okay, so where to start? I recently dropped into some colleagues downtown, and they're all in the engagement field. They do lots of community planning and architectural intervention stuff. They're great. So they're super creative, and they're also very focused. And we had this activity that I thought would be really fun. And it comes from this book and website called Liberating Structures, which I'm a big fan of. And you have 5 shapes. So everybody can draw these 5 shapes. The square, a circle, an arrow, a spiral, and a little star with a circle on it to make a star person. Super simple. Anybody can do those. So everybody practices. They draw all their shapes. And then the challenge is to tell a story only using those 5 shapes about a problem or a challenge that you're having. And so I said, okay, something in the office could be like who's not doing the dishes. Could be something at home, like how do you get to work. Whatever the story is, use those shapes to kind of arrange them. And then you can use scale. So like there's a big person, there's a tiny person. And when I gave them 5 minutes tops, and then I let them redraw it if they really wanted to kind of to practice. They had the most amazing stories because when you give people a little bit of a constraint, it frees up the kind of the voices in our head that are like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not a good artist. And it also kind of equalizes that everyone's drawings are going to kind of look the same. Even if I draw like a super fancy spiral because I have a super fancy pen, it's still just going to be a spiral. And so the person next to me had this amazing kind of 3, she put a big circle down and filled it up with like chaos with all sorts of spirals, and then had 2 adults in the next one, and then everything was organized. And I was like, what is your story about? And she said, oh, before it's like the morning before we leave the house, the kids are just like this and this and this. And then instead what we're going to do is we're going to draw it out so then I take care of this one and my partner takes care of this kid. And she's like, I just had this big aha moment. Why are we all trying to do all the things? And I was like, perfect. You had a pen, a piece of paper, and 5 symbols, and you just had this breakthrough about how to change your morning routine. It's amazing. Super simple, right?
No, and I like the idea that you frame it in some type of constraint first, so that people don't have to just like, oh, where am I pulling from, right?
That's it. Yeah.
And so I think that's really important. What have you found the outcome that people want from, let's say, attending one of your facilitation classes or something? What are they really after? It's not to draw a better picture.
It's so funny because right now it's December. Everyone's kind of doing the year the year looking backwards. And so I reached out last week to my facilitation and graphic facilitation colleagues to say, in all of the sessions that you've been in this year, you've been in meetings from like the highest officials to the most grassroots organizations, what are you noticing? Let's talk about that, and we'll write up a little reflection from our kind of unique, it is a pretty unique perspective. And so the themes that came back, what people are looking for this year in particular, they're looking for belonging. They're looking for an understanding of what is certain and uncertain in this VUCA world that we're in. So like the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So they're looking for reciprocity in how we're treating each other. And we're looking for clarity. So these of all the people that I asked, like 20 people, these kind of 4 themes around belonging, clarity, understanding, and really, truly connection, I think all of those show up when you facilitate people well. You can facilitate in the room by how you invite people, by how you treat them when you're together, with the activities or the questions that you ask, and then obviously the products that you're making. And so when it comes to graphic facilitation or graphic recording, it's the process and the product. So the process might be drawing to understand a complex problem. It could be drawing to make a diagram where we're going to draw it once, then cross it out, then draw it again. Or it could be the course of a meeting where we're mapping out all of the discussion and then looking backwards to say, okay, where did we start? Where are we now? What are the themes? And that's about the process, but it could also be about the product that we're going to record and graphically record an hour and a half of a keynote speaker, which then gets emailed out to everybody right afterwards to help them remember what they just heard. Whether it's process or product, it's how you do the work, and the jargon is like, it's how you show up.
I think that's really interesting how you framed that. And what I take from it, I'm somewhat intimidated, let's say, when I'm doing a course or building a course for someone, that I think people want that PowerPoint. Is that just my own, what I want to say, my own restrictions? I mean, do you think people want more of that hand copy, let's say, and that because they'll connect better with me?
So like if you were giving a presentation, what advice would I give you to make a great presentation?
Sure.
Any kind of element that is unique and authentic is going to help people connect with you. So if you're a great public speaker and you don't need lots of text in your PowerPoint, you are so far ahead of the game already. But not everybody is a great presenter, and so they use PowerPoint as a way of helping them, again, think through their topic. Having sat through hundreds of presentations this year, what I can say is anything that you can do to be authentic is the best thing that you can possibly do for your audience. And so sometimes that means drawing. Sometimes that means making or picking an image that really summarizes what you're trying to say. Sometimes that means writing the PowerPoint and then not using it, because the writing of it helps you understand what you're trying to communicate. So when I help people with their PowerPoints, I do a couple of things. One, I help them clarify the language and usually take out at least half of the text. And then sometimes what we do is we make infographics that are custom just for that PowerPoint. And so the combination of hand drawings plus the data, but because we're doing it not live, we really have the chance to get it right. And then what you're giving to your audience is really a gift. It's a gift because they can see that you've done all of this work, and what's in the PowerPoint is designed to really be the presentation. It's not a handout, because if you just stick an infographic onto a PowerPoint, it's a disaster, right? Everyone has seen that. You download it, you stick it up, and it's like, oh, great, I can't read any of the numbers. So that's one way that I think the visuals will help. And you can use hand-drawn elements in an infographic to make it really stand out. So simplify the language, take out at least half the text, make the presentation a gift, and make it authentic in that way. But I have lots of people that will take a graphic recording that we've done for the whole day, zoom in and crop out parts of the images, and then they'll use that to make their next presentation. So I just finished a big 3-day summit. It was a justice-related summit, and the next day the facilitator had to give like the recap from what we did the day before, and she was able to zoom in and use chunks of the images. And so it was like this custom overnight kind of, again, gift back to the back to the community that we were working with.
What's the balance of color? I mean, every picture I see of you, you got like these 4 markers in your hand. Like, it's the first time I've seen you that you're not loaded up with like a backpack of markers.
No, it's true. I brought them on their desk. There you go. There you go. Okay, so I have to say, I always start the day with like, I'm gonna just have black and two colors, and I'll put all the other markers on the other chair, and I'll just like put them away from me. But I just can't resist, and by the time noon comes, I've already used all the colors. So yeah, I know there's like deep color theory about contrasting colors, complementary colors, choosing a color palette. I try my best, but really, I just end up puking color everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I was just laughing because I was going through everything and I looked at it. Tell me, now you just participated in a new book. I think it was called "Drawn Together Through Visual Practice." You got it there? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about it. Tell me about it, because I didn't recognize that you had done that till after I invited you to be a guest. Then I saw the book after. Lead me into it. Make me want to buy it.
I want everybody who's interested in reflective practice and being a better practitioner. I think you're going to find something in here. So the book began in a taxi cab. So 4 years ago, I was in a taxi after a conference for the International Forum of Visual Practitioners. That's our professional body for this type of work. And I met a woman in that taxi who also shared a background in adult education. And we really wanted to do some sort of project around how to help people who do this work think about it. We wanted to do a project on reflection. So we kickstarted this online conversation series. We kicked around some questions. We met more people. And then we just kind of let it go. We just kind of were like, okay, maybe this part is done. But this itch, like I just had this itch that I just wanted to start answering those questions that we had talked about. So I approached Brandy Agerbeck and Kelvie Bird, two practitioners that have been around for at least 20 years each in the field, and said, what about an anthology? What would you be interested in inviting some people in to talk about what they see, what they do, and how they do it? And so because of their networks and, again, their passion for the value and the impact of visual work, we ended up inviting a really eclectic bunch of people. And that's, I think, the joyful part about this book. We invited people in who draw and who don't draw. We invited people in who use their whole practice around making sense of things. So there's a dancer who helps people interpret PhD work into visuals, but it's through bodies. There's somebody who builds kinesthetic sculptures. There are people who use like what's called big brush calligraphy. Her name's Barbara Bash. And so there's no text at all in the work that she does. Everybody is coming at their work in a way that helps me reflect better on what I do. So having read Anthony Weeks' piece on listening helps me now think about, what am I doing when I'm listening in the room? Who am I listening to? What am I listening for? Am I listening for the past or the future? Anyway, so that's the reason why the book started. It started in a taxi cab. I wanted to ask the smartest people that I know what they thought about the field, and then we asked a whole range of people who are inside the field and outside the field to help us think through these questions. So there's 27 chapters. There's 25 people, and there's everything from art therapy to academics talking about kind of the biggest scope of it. There are people who work in North America and Europe and other continents. Yeah, we're super excited.
Oh no, it sounds interesting.
It's getting like great traction. Yeah.
Is it mostly about reflection, or is it just other subject matter too?
Yeah, there's only actually a couple questions on reflection, but it's about asking people to talk about what they do that I think was the reflection part.
Okay.
So Bob Stilger's chapter is like, when we can't see the future, where do we begin? Kelvie writes about scaling up the work because she works in front of 50,000 people at a time through one of her the online MOOCs through MIT. Yeah, the secret to long-term impact when you're talking about using the art of hosting, which is a specific methodology. So long-term impact with art of hosting and visuals. What does that mean when they come together? So we're putting people. We called it. So the four editors went on a retreat to build this book because we're all in 4 different cities, just to add to the to the fun. So Vancouver, Ottawa, Massachusetts, and so town of Massachusetts, and Chicago. And when we got all of our chapters in, we decided to lay them out on the coffee table. Everybody had an index card, and we called it building the spine of the book. And so we literally moved all of the people kind of around to build this spine, because we wanted to know what would happen if we put these two authors in conversation with each other. What if we put them here? How would that change the understanding for the reader? So we wanted to bring in people who might not talk to each other in a book, and then in the real world, we're also helping those authors connect with each other.
That sounds amazing. Now, you're working on another project or another book, is that correct?
It's finished, which is great. Yeah, I had a book of comics come out in May of this year. Comics with footnotes, that's the easiest way to describe it. So I don't recommend 2 books in 1 year. I don't recommend it. The only way these projects happened was because I'm part of these 2 groups of people. And that is truly the way to launch these bigger works into the world. So the second project is called the Graphic History Collective. We've been around since 2009. And the book that we just published is historical comics about working class and working people's histories in Canada. And no one had ever done this before. So again, we solicited people to write and then research these unique 10-page comics about history that you probably wouldn't have learned about in high school, maybe in college. And what's great about that book is that there's a short essay by an expert in the field, and then the comic, and then a whole reading list so you can take that work and do your own work afterwards.
What's upcoming for Sam Brad? Where are you headed in the future here?
Things that I would like to do. I want to keep doing the work that I'm doing. I am super happy with the balance that I've got right now. I meet amazing and get to think with amazing people. And I feel very, very, very lucky to do what I do. So I want to keep doing graphic recording, graphic facilitation, and I want to spread the word about it. That's for sure. I want to see this book that we've just published, the Drawn Together with Visual Practice, really spread, because I think we need to keep writing and thinking through where the field is going. So that's exciting. And mentoring right now, which is really great. And it's really pushing me to help understand what I value and how I approach the work. And so for the last 6 months or so, I've been mentoring 2 young women who are incredibly talented. And you can find more about them on the website. They're going to be launching guest posts and introducing themselves in the next couple of weeks.
What's the best way for someone to connect up with you and find out more about you?
My website is drawingchange.com, and that's a great way of finding out what I'm working on and what I'm doing. I post to Instagram almost every day, so if you're curious about where in the world that I'm working, that's where to find me. I like Twitter a lot, so you can find me there. Otherwise, I just really welcome people getting in touch. One of the greatest parts about the work right now is that people have been emailing me pictures from their meetings, just spontaneously. Hey, Sam, I just wanted you to know I was in a classroom today and my kids started sketchnoting and I wanted to show you what we worked on. We had the topic of this history lesson. Here you go. And it's so great to be able to see the range of how visuals are helping people, whether it's understanding, a history lesson or helping people understand like where the marketing and communications direction is going for 2017. It's great. They're like, we took a picture of all of our Post-its. Won't make any sense, but we know you're going to like it. I was like, I totally do like it. Thanks.
Sam, I appreciate your time very much. I see that you love your work, you enjoy it, and especially enjoy the people that you surround yourself with. So I compliment you that on a great deal. This podcast will be available on the Business Title One iTunes Store and the Business Title One blog site. So thank you all for listening.